Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Friday, May the 23rd, 2025. Today there is a sesquiquadrate between Mars and Neptune. So Mars and Neptune are 135 degrees apart, and this is an aspect I want to look at. I think it is quite an important aspect, and it comes in the wake of Mars making a sesquiquadrate to Saturn. So we had that on Monday. So Mars has moved from one outer planet sesquiquadrate to another. And so maybe actually we should see the Mars sesquiquadrate Saturn on Monday and the Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune today as really part of the same movement. So yeah, that is what we're going to look at. I'll be looking at a couple of events which took place when Mars was sesquiquadrate or semi-square Neptune, and also looking at a few people who have Mars semi-square or sesquiquadrate Neptune in their horoscopes. But first of all, let's consider the astrology and the I Ching for today, which is Friday, March the 23rd. As usual, don't forget to like and subscribe if appropriate. So here is the chart for today, set for noon in New York, and the moon is now in Aries. So it was sort of late Pisces yesterday. Now it's at 14 Aries, and so we have a few planets in Aries. Well, we've got Neptune in Aries. We've had Neptune in Aries for a bit of a time. We've got Venus in Aries, and now the moon has joined Venus in this sign. And Moon-Venus conjunction it's quite sociable. It's dynamic. It's about expressing ourselves in a sort of fairly easygoing way. But yeah, we can certainly be dynamic about it because the moon is not just conjunct Venus, it is trine Mars. And, this is what I was trying to say yesterday. So yesterday we had an exact Venus-Mars trine, but I wasn't convinced that we would really see the full benefits of this trine until today. And sort of today, the moon, it picks up on the trine, making the conjunction to Venus and the trine to Mars. So it is a day for being sociable, for being attractive, for presenting oneself in one's best possible light, and you don't have to do things alone. Though don't forget what I was saying yesterday about the Venus-Mars trine and the sort of examples of Venus-Mars trines. Venus-Mars trine is not always a fortunate event, and Venus trine Mars can sometimes be linked with quite sort of dramatic and unpleasant events, which can be about death and destruction and war and massacre. That is, in my opinion, because Mars is not just a planet of love. It can be the planet of war as well, or at least a planet of victory and feeling that one can really assert oneself with reckless abandon, and that can be dangerous if you're a state or if you feel that you are in a position of power. Now, the moon conjunct Venus, moon trine Mars, that's certainly important, but we also have a Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune. Now, I'm going to be talking in detail about Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune at the end of this video, but in a general sense, it does matter. Mars is about how we assert ourselves, and so the way we assert ourselves can be moderated by Neptune. So this might mean that if we're not careful, we do things that have no chance of working, perhaps because we've got our facts wrong, or we put huge amounts of energy into something, and it's just a complete waste of time. On a positive note, Neptune is quite a spiritual and imaginative planet, and so if you're involved in something a creative nature, then maybe this Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune is actually going to be, quite a good aspect. It could be quite inspiring and will allow your imagination to flow freely. And finally, I should point out that the moon is semi-square the sun. Now, that is, you could say, a pretty minor aspect and a pretty frequent aspect. So, this moon semi-square of the sun, well, it happens right at the end of the day if you're in Europe. In fact, it could be early tomorrow. I make it that it happens at sort of 11:15 in the evening. So the point about the moon semi-square sun is it relates to the lunar cycle. So the lunar cycle, you can imagine the lunar cycle in terms of sort of 8 stages. When you cut the lunar cycle into sort of 8 slices of a cake, you've got the new moon, which is at the beginning of the lunar cycle. Then you've got first quarter moon, and then the second quarter, then the full moon. But what we're talking about here with this semi-square is we're talking about that moment between the last quarter moon and the next new moon. And it really is the end of the lunar cycle. It's a reminder, but we've only got an 1/8 of the lunar cycle left. It's that, if you like, final crisis at the end of this lunar cycle. And it could just be a feeling that really absolute last chance. If you want to make the most of this lunar cycle and you haven't done anything, got to get it together now, because the next new moon really is upon us. And of course, we've got a new moon. I think is it May the 27th? Yeah, we've got May the 27th is the new moon. And of course, this lunar cycle is coming to an end. And so it's possible that for some of us, this moon semi-square, the sun today and perhaps tomorrow, could represent a little bit of urgency. So that's the picture for New York, set for noon. If we look at the chart for Sydney, Australia, the moon is at 5 degrees Aries, so it's still in Aries, and so it doesn't matter where you are. Moon is going to be in Aries all day. Okay, if you're in Australia or New Zealand very, very early in the morning, I don't know, 1 in the morning, then okay, then 2 in the morning, then the moon might still be in late Pisces. But by and large, it is a moon. It is a moon in Aries day. Now, if you are in Australia or New Zealand, you might not pick up on the moon conjunct Venus, moon trine Mars in all its glory until very late in the day, and instead you might have to satisfy yourself with moon sextile Pluto or moon sextile the Sun. In fact, moon on the Sun Pluto midpoint, which is nothing to be sniffed at. I mean, that's moon sextile Sun, moon sextile Pluto. So if it is a balanced, harmonizing aspect, but also an aspect that allows you to assert your presence, but in a gentle way. So maybe if you're in Australia or New Zealand or East Asia, things might be a little more low profile, a little slower, but I don't think that's going to prevent you from getting things done. And then there is the heliocentric picture, when we put the Sun at the center of the solar system. We can see that Neptune is now well and truly in Aries. Remember, this is heliocentric Neptune. Geocentrically, Neptune has been in Aries for some time, but heliocentrically, it's just happened. And of course, in a heliocentric chart, you don't get retrograde motion, so Neptune is going to stay in Aries. And this might just solidify the Neptune in Aries influence, really remind us that Neptune in Pisces is over, and we need to see things in a new way, that it's a time when assertion is going to be in demand. People who are dynamic and assertive and are definite are going to be the ones that get attention, and the kind of vague, idealistic thinking that one might have associated with Neptune in Pisces is increasingly becoming something of the past, for better and for worse. It kind of depends. It's a time when there will be less empathy, but also a time when there might be less sloppy thinking. And looking at this heliocentric chart, Mars is getting ever closer to the opposition of Saturn, so it's just less than 2 degrees apart now, and that may be saying something about the world in which we're living. It could be becoming a more dangerous place, or people are having a more grim view of the way things are unfolding or starting to unfold. And additionally, we have a sextile aspect between the Earth and Pluto. That Earth-Pluto sextile was exact yesterday, but it's still with us. And with this Earth-Pluto sextile, I think we need to see it in a positive way. It is an opportunity to get things done, to make an impression. I mean, that is important, but we don't have to be overly dramatic about it. So if we slowly and gradually assert ourselves with this Earth sextile Pluto, then eventually we may start to get our way. And of course, this Earth sextile Pluto is very much linked with its geocentric equivalent, which is Sun trine Pluto. And that Sun trine Pluto is already starting to make its influence felt. It's not exact today, but it will be exact over the next couple of days. So that's the heliocentric view. And now I want to look at today from the viewpoint of the 12 signs. So these are my forecasts for the 12 signs for today, which is Friday, May the 23rd, 2025. Aries. Aries, the moon is now in your sign, and I think that's great. You feel that things are moving, and there might have been a lot of potential over the last couple of days. You thought, if only you could have got yourself together, then there would have been so much that you could have achieved, but it just maybe didn't quite happen. And now that the moon is in Aries, this is a time when you can really start to make your influence felt. And one thing about this moon, it's conjunct Venus and it's trine Mars. So I talked about Venus trine Mars yesterday, and I was saying, what a great aspect it might be. But I think I also indicated that it might not be available to you. And that's because, yesterday we had a conjunction between the moon and Saturn in Pisces, and you might have not been in the mood, or you felt there was something holding you back. You certainly had a good excuse for not getting anything together. But I do think, Aries, that excuse may have gone. Things are starting to align for you. In fact, they are aligning for you. So this Friday, what would you like to do? Because you have a chance to actually do it. And you can do it really without getting much resistance. So you might think that you are going to be opposed, or people are going to come up with all sorts of reasons why you can't get your way. But don't worry about it. You're going to be charming and charismatic, and with the Sun in Gemini making a trine to Pluto in Aquarius, that's going to really help you with your communication skills, being able to say what's on your mind, but also be able to communicate in a way that is persuasive. So I do think it is a time, Aries, when you can get your way without causing too much fuss. And from a relationship point of view, this Venus trine Mars, is all about relationships, working out, being successful, being able to benefit from other people's company. Now, as always with these things, I don't want to create unreal expectations, but I have to say that astrologically, if there is any day when relationships should work for you, it will be today, surely, because the moon is conjunct Venus, because the moon is trine Mars, because there's a Venus-Mars trine. So you have to consider what is possible and what you want and what is reasonable. And it doesn't matter what you're looking for. I do think that you can benefit from other people, and at the very least, Aries, you're going to be very persuasive, and it's therefore a time when you should really be making a special effort to be known and be understood. And don't forget at the same time what makes you different, what special attributes you have which allow you to stand out. And it's absolutely possible that some people have underestimated you. They thought you didn't know something. They thought you didn't have a particular skill. And it's a day when you can really spring a surprise. You do something, you show something that no one was expecting, and everything changes. And I think that really everything changes for the better. Taurus, the moon is making a conjunction to Venus today, and it's also making a trine to Mars. And I regard those two aspects as being fortunate, and also as being fortunate for you. And you can certainly get on with people well, and you at the same time, you don't have to make any special effort. You don't have to try too hard. And it's quite possible, Taurus, that you're at your strongest when you are at a distance. If you are right in the middle of things, you might feel that you're not entirely yourself, that you can't really do all the things you want to do, and you just might feel crowded out. But when you're at a distance, you seem to have more power, and it might be because you've got perspective. I mean, perspective really is important, and if you're right in the middle of things, do you actually know what's going on? So do be prepared to distance yourself from things. And in a social sense, if you are distancing yourself from things, there are two advantages. I mean, one advantage is that you can see the broader view, and you can start to understand what's going on. But also, just because you're at a distance doesn't mean you're being ignored. It may be that you're encouraging certain people to make the effort. You don't want to be completely available today. By making yourself slightly unavailable, it's possible you, for example, might be making yourself more attractive. And there is this Venus trine Mars, which we had yesterday, but I actually think that this Venus trine Mars is going to be stronger today than it was yesterday. And so you do have a chance to show your strengths, and also to show your resilience. That's what people want at the moment. They do want resilience, and also the capacity to stand up for something. If you just are vague and you just think that anything will go, then that's not really very attractive. And when you're looking at how things are unfolding privately, you're not entirely relaxed. You know that nothing is entirely easy. that some things have to be fought for, have to be struggled for. And if you regard something as being really difficult, that could be a good sign, provided you are able to really give it your best shot. And that is important. And you shouldn't assume that just because something is difficult, it is unattainable or is impossible. You've got to really try, and it might be that you have to smash through something. Now, if you want to smash through something, well, that's yet another good reason why you need to keep your distance. If you're with other people in a sort of very hectic way, you will start to lose your power. But at a distance, you are stronger, and you start to be aware of what exactly you can do, and really there is a lot you can do. Now, going back to the theme of relationships, there is a sesquiquadrate between Mars and Neptune, and this might be a reminder that not everyone can be helpful. Some people might be unhelpful. So there's a bit of a contradiction here. Venus trine Mars represents fortunate relationships, you and another person really coming together. Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune, on the other hand, represents a particular relationship that may not be so fortunate. A person who is confused, or they could be deceptive, or they're trying to lead you in a direction you don't want to go in. So although relationships can be an area of growth and success and happiness, you have to be choosy, because the wrong person with this Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune, it could cause a lot of damage. Gemini, Sun is starting to move towards a trine of Pluto. Now, this Sun-Pluto trine is not exact today. I think it's exact tomorrow, over the weekend. And this trine certainly gives you a lot of power, and it does enable you to get things done and to assert yourself, and also to see what is possible. And being a Gemini, you are hopefully a curious person who is interested in everything that is available, and there may be things that are even sort of unavailable, but you could make them available if you had the vision and the imagination. And so, Sun trine Pluto is reminding you that there's always something else to get your hands on, always something else to inspire you. So don't think you've sorted everything out. Never think you've sorted everything out. And that is really a message of Pluto being in Aquarius. I mean, Pluto in Aquarius, it's going to be in Aquarius for a long time. So for until the early 2040s or something like that. So you better get used to Pluto being in Aquarius. And with Sun trine Pluto, it is a time to be energized by something cosmic, universal, spiritual, and your own ideas might be in a process of change. And so you might actually have a realization over the next couple of days that something you've been thinking about, but you hadn't really made the connection, but you make the connection. And it's actually quite easy for one idea to morph into another idea, and in the process you can really be elevated. Now, one rather interesting aspect we have today is an opposition between Mercury and true black moon Lilith. So Mercury is at 25 Taurus, true black moon Lilith is at 25 Scorpio. So with this opposition, you may be challenged by something. And Black Moon Lilith can represent the darker side of things, things that you don't normally want to get involved with, things that happen in your dream world, the entities you meet in your dream world. Isn't that part of what Lilith is all about? This Lilith being this sort of being of the night, but it might be nothing to be afraid of, and it's just a force that maybe needs to be integrated. And Mercury opposition Black Moon Lilith may allow you to integrate this. Of course, Black Moon Lilith may represent something from the past that you had ignored, and you felt you'd moved on from it. A sort of a darkness from the past. Geminis often have a darkness to them, a darkness that can be a darkness. It's not like Scorpio darkness. It's just things that they're interested in, that they just find themselves, naturally attracted to. That they just can't help it, and it is a fascination, and it's a fascination that you might have felt you'd given up on, decades ago. But it actually could be very real, and maybe the Mercury opposition Black Moon Lilith could be stirring it up, though. Don't take things too seriously. I think that really does matter. So I'm inclined to see Mercury opposition Black Moon Lilith as interesting rather than as being negative. And additionally, we have stuff in Aries. We got Moon Venus conjunction in Aries, and the Moon is making a trine to Mars, and so that does give a lightness to today, which it perhaps balances that Mercury opposition true Black Moon Lilith. And if you are meeting people, you're going to a party, socializing with that Moon conjunct Venus trine Mars, I would have thought, all things being equal, it should go pretty well. And at the moment, you're capable of being, very dynamic, and if there's something you want to express, then Gemini, I don't think you'll have any problems. And of all the 12 signs, you might actually today be one of the more powerful. Cancer, things are changing, and things are actually becoming more dynamic. There is stuff going on in Aries. The Moon is most certainly in Aries today, wherever you are. And the Moon is making conjunction to Venus. It's making a trine to Mars. And so this does really make you into really quite a strong person who can make their presence felt. And so don't be afraid of asserting yourself and asserting your authority, because at the moment you definitely have authority, and people are prepared to listen to you. And if you are in a position of authority, then you need to leverage this, because you're in that position for a reason. And you shouldn't hold back as far as advising people what to do and providing some leadership. And it may actually be up to you to take the first step. And that might not be something you want to do, but someone has got to take that first step, and it may be down to you. And even if you don't feel that you have a position of authority, right now, Cancer, you're someone who can be respected, and if you show an example, then I think that example is very likely to be followed. And additionally, Cancer, there's something about you that is actually quite practical. You know what needs to be done, and you're not going to forget the details that matter. For example, the financial details, and if something needs to be resolved of a financial nature, then I think that you should be able to address the matter quickly and dynamically, and don't miss your chance. That is important. There may be a chance to do something, and if you miss that chance, well, then you might have to wait, or it could be that you've missed that chance forever. And that could relate to the lunar cycle. So, one aspect we have got today is moon semi-square sun. Now, it sounds quite a minor aspect, but it's an important stage in the lunar cycle. It means that the lunar cycle is 7/8 of the way through. So there's only 1/8 of the lunar cycle left. So it's the absolute last chance. It's almost like the last stop before the next new moon. So if there's something that needs to be done, something needs to be resolved, then sort it out. And if you don't sort it out now, well, you could have missed your chance. But it's a Friday, it's a normal working day, I think, and so that might be a good opportunity while things are still open, while people are still available to to get it together. Now, that technically that moon square sun is potentially quite late. I mean, it's 11:15 in the evening in London. In fact, it's tomorrow if you're in if you're in Europe or most of continental Europe, or of course Asia, Australia, New Zealand. But maybe you shouldn't just fixate on the exact time. It's just a deadline. See it as a deadline, that just something has to be done by the time of that moon semi-square sun. Of course, it's going to be earlier if you're in if you're in the Americas. That would be what 6:15 in the evening on today. So something ideally needs to be finished, and if you do feel a sense of urgency, then do take that urgency seriously, and get it out of the way and do what you have to do, and that means that you'll be taking control of the lunar cycle. Leo, the moon is now in Aries, so that means it's in a fire sign, and it's making a conjunction to Venus in Aries, and it's making a trine to Mars, which is in of course Leo. It's in your sign. So I do think that it's a day which actually can be quite active. There can be lots of things going on, and you can be the center of things. You can be the one that makes things happen. And so if other people are feeling bored or uninspired, then you can bring down the fire. You can almost be Prometheus, but you don't have to suffer the punishment of Prometheus. So you can bring that fire down and show people that there are other ways of looking at things. So it's important that you are not stuck in one mode of being. You've got to think about lots of different possibilities, and you've got to be open to the new. It's something you do have to do, or you should be doing. Especially with Moon in Aries, trine Mars. What are you bringing down? What can you excite the world with? And that might give you a feeling of responsibility, and but not boring responsibility, just a responsibility to make things active, exciting and fun for other people. So there's no pressure there, really. Just do what you feel you want to do, and don't allow yourself to be held back. And don't think, Leo, that there is something that you're no good at. There could be a moment in a day when you really want to do something, but you have your doubts. You think that you're not good at it, and you start questioning your abilities. And this questioning is not especially useful. Well, unless you can be constructive about it. You might say, okay, you can do something, You're 90% of the way there. Maybe you can fine tune it, but you know that broadly speaking, it's good enough. So don't allow any self-doubt to spoil the day. And additionally, you are in touch with fairly cosmic, high-level forces that you don't fully understand, and this may be what all this fire is about, because there is a lot of fire at the moment with Moon and Venus in Aries, Neptune in Aries as well, Mars in Leo, and you as the Prometheus figure bringing something down. Sometimes you don't actually know what you're bringing down, so you're in touch with stuff. It seems interesting, and you bring it down, and then you have to sort out what have you brought down. You don't know. And through your actions, you might create something rather unexpected, but it's for the good, and you shouldn't expect everything to be completely predictable. Sometimes you just have to allow events to take their course. Turning to relationships, and we do have a build-up to a trine aspect between the Sun and Pluto, and the Sun-Pluto trine does say something about other people, or perhaps the important people in your life, and they have a role, and they can change things. They can actually change you. So you could say that the Sun in Gemini, that represents you, and it's trine Pluto, Pluto in Aquarius, Pluto in your opposite sign. So through contact with another person, somehow you can be changed, and you can be changed for the better. So, really, see what other people have got to offer, and don't be afraid of a challenge. If you are being challenged by another person, perhaps being presented with something you don't understand or you feel could be threatening, you don't automatically reject it. Sometimes you need that kind of challenge, because it allows you to move on. Virgo, well, the Sun is definitely in Gemini, and the Sun, stays in Gemini for the next few weeks, and this is a time when, Virgo, you need to get things together. I think I probably said this yesterday, but it does matter, and you might not have all the time in the world. The Sun will eventually move into Cancer, so while the Sun is in Gemini, ask yourself, what can you do? How can you take action to move forward with your ambitions? Because I think you do have ambitions, and these ambitions have been brewing over the last year. Ever since Jupiter went into Gemini, which was last May, I think, and so think about what you need to do, and if possible, make sure you actually do it. Though, don't think that you've got all of the answers. You probably got most of the answers, but there are still some things that are still coming through that you're still trying to understand. And at the moment, there could be something you're thinking about, and it feels quite complicated, sort of over your head, and it probably represents a future development, a development which is just starting, and you're certainly aware of it, but you can't really fully understand where it's all going, and that might bother you. And just because you can't understand the ending, you might decide that you're not going to bother with it. But that would be a shame. In fact, if you don't get something but you feel it's important, then you should really stick with it. And over the next few weeks, it might then, start to make sense. And, additionally, Virgo, it is a time when you ideally should be asking, deep questions, and you shouldn't be satisfied with what's right in front of you, and you should maybe be quite pushy about it. If you feel that information is being denied to you, then go for it. Keep asking, keep researching, and be persistent. Doesn't matter if it's Friday, the last day of the week. Doesn't matter, well, tomorrow might be Saturday, but Saturday could be more of the same. I mean, I'll be talking about Saturday in my next video, but Friday, Saturday, it is a time to understand things, and not to be satisfied with some sort of apology for an answer. Yeah, you might get apologies for an answer, people trying to fob you off, but don't be fobbed off, because the truth needs to be uncovered. And one aspect we have today is an opposition between Mercury and true black moon Lilith, and sort of Mercury true black moon Lilith opposition. Well, Mercury is your ruler, and it might represent a truth or a fact that you want to reject. So you hear something, or you realize something, Mercury opposition true black moon Lilith, that in a way is obvious, but you don't want to countenance it. It seems perhaps a little bit threatening, or it could be undermining, or it just could be just dark and not something you want to get involved with. But if something feels dark and sinister and hidden, then maybe that's a sure sign that it's something you should be involved with, because it allows you to really understand the truth of the matter. And turning to relationships, it can be an okay day for relationships, for getting on with people, but not really in a superficial way. So it's probably not a great day for having light conversation, small talk, being fairly trivial about things, casual meetings, hello, goodbye. That will feel unsatisfactory. And so if you want to enjoy relationships today, then be prepared to take things seriously, and be prepared to really try to understand the other person, and to be able to deal with things at an emotional level, because emotions are close to the surface. You are aware of them, and if you decide nonetheless that you don't want to get involved with things at an emotional level, well, things actually could get out of control, and you might get yourself into a situation where you don't really understand what's going on. So do be emotionally aware if you want to get involved with other people, at whatever level, and just accept that some people are complicated, and you need to deal with those complications. Libra, relationships may be difficult to avoid, and we already have Venus in Aries. Venus has been in Aries for some time, and so with Venus, your ruler, in Aries, which is your opposite sign, there have been times over the last few weeks, where relationships have been difficult to avoid, and you've been very aware of the impact that certain people have been having on you. And now we've got the moon making a conjunction to Venus, and also making a trine to Mars. So one can see that as being very fortunate for relationships. One has to see it as being fortunate. So if you're listening to this hoping for good news about relationships, I know that people listen to my videos for all sorts of reasons, and they don't always get what they want, so maybe they move somewhere else. But if you are listening to this for a particular reason, and it's quite possible that relationships might be something you are interested in, it's not something I try to emphasize, because I think astrologers talk far too much about relationships and love and romance. I think in an ideal world, astrologers wouldn't really bother with love and romance, because it's a trap, and I'm just not convinced that astrology can be particularly helpful in that direction, because it creates unreal expectations. So it's particularly a problem if you are in a new relationship. If you're looking for a relationship, then astrology can in many cases be worse than useless. But still, I do have to say that with Moon conjunct Venus, Moon trine Mars, if you come here looking for good news about relationships, then it's good. In theory, it's good that if you want a relationship, if you want the right relationship, if you want a relationship to improve, then everything is lined up, and so give it your best shot. But it's important not to have too many expectations, because indeed it's important not to have any expectations at all, because expectations can kill relationships. They can kill the possibility of relationships, in my opinion, that is. But do give it your best shot, and if you try not to think about relationships, then relationships can be an area potentially of joy and satisfaction. I have to say that, don't I? But relationships are not just about love and romance. They're just about getting on with people. And today, Libra, I really do actually think you can get on with people. It shouldn't be difficult, and you'll know what to say, you'll know what to do, and you'll know how to appear, you'll know how to present yourself. So you might want to take advantage of this opportunity. But still, Libra, I don't think that it's going to be a day which is entirely sort of light and free. I think that many Librans are going to take things rather seriously. They might regard everything as being a bit of a battle, a bit of a struggle, that everything has to be fought for, and that can be a good thing, and it's actually quite a good antidote to what I was saying about Moon conjunct Venus and Moon trine Mars, that if you regard everything as having to be fought for, then that gives you the impetus to actually make things happen. You can be tough, and you can just keep going until you get what you want. And in the process, you might realize that some things, some obstacles aren't just going to budge of their own accord. You're going to have to put in the effort. You may have to smash them. At least that might be how you feel. Is it necessary to take such a dramatic approach? Well, if something's in your way, you have to find a way of getting around it. You might want to ignore the obstacle, but if you feel that you want to smash it, metaphorically, that's it's speaking. I'm not saying you literally have to get a sledgehammer, but if you can focus on an obstacle and you have your metaphorical, symbolic sledgehammer, then Libra, it can be a day when you can make good progress. And part of a way of making progress, though, today is actually getting other people's help. Other people are there for you, and if you can accommodate them just a bit, they should give you the cooperation you need. Scorpio, today you can actually accomplish quite a lot, but it may be hard work. It's not going to be a day when just everything falls into place, all by itself, and there's nothing you have to do. I think, Scorpio, you're going to realize that you have to do the work. You have to make things happen, and you have to go through things one step at a time. And yeah, it could be rather boring, but it's important. And so, Scorpio, if you feel inclined to really push it, to perhaps go on some sort of major clearance exercise where everything has to be removed, problems have to be resolved, and really going into the detail of the matter. If you feel that things aren't moving fast enough, or you just have to realize that it's maybe a time to just stop what you're doing, stop the big ideas, and to really get down to things at a really low level. And there should be a degree of satisfaction in doing this. You'll know that you're doing something important, even if it appears to be rather boring. But the more you do it, the more progress you'll make. And so, by the end of the day, things could just be a lot clearer and a lot cleaner. Though, if you analyze things on a minute by minute basis, you may regard yourself as just not getting anywhere. But it's just perhaps a time when you shouldn't be thinking about what you're accomplishing minute by minute, and you should just sort of wait till the end of the day, and over the course of the day, doing whatever you can, and then you look at what you've achieved, and actually you've achieved a great deal. So do things at your own pace. And also, Venus is still making a trine to Mars, and the Moon is joining in. I mean, Moon is making a conjunction to Venus, Moon is making a trine to Mars. So you needn't think that you're on your own, and support is available. And as far as relationships are concerned, details do matter. So if you want a relationship to work, then spend some time thinking about the other person, what their needs are, and what their likes and dislikes are, but not in a way where you are compromising yourself. It's not like you have to go out of your way to make another person happy. It's not about that. It's just about awareness. And different people are different, and you do have to take that into consideration. And also, in relationships, especially one-to-one relationships, there is an opposition between Mercury and true black moon Lilith, and this opposition is across the main axis of your chart. You've got true black moon Lilith in Scorpio, Mercury in Taurus is opposition true black moon Lilith, and so that may say something about conversation, what you talk about, and the kind of subject matter that you find yourself involved in. And true black moon Lilith may represent difficult subjects that could be controversial, that could be unpleasant, but it might be a good day for discussing unpleasant things with another person. Sometimes, unpleasant things have to be talked about, and it can't just all be sweetness and light and making everyone happy and not being controversial. Sometimes you just have to tell it as it is. And going back to your ambitions, Venus is still trine Mars. Must emphasize that. And Mars is in Leo. Mars is in this high-profile sign in your chart, and with the Moon and Venus trine Mars, that does mean, Scorpio, but if you are working today, if you are in a job, or you have a business, or even if you're trying to get a job, then that that Venus trine Mars with the Moon also involved can really help things, and you'll absolutely know what you need to do, and you'll know how to satisfy the demands of employers. You will do a good job, and if you are looking for a job, then I think that you will know how to present yourself, and you won't make any mistakes. Or if you're not just looking for a job, if you're looking for a new business, and you will know what's required of you, and you really will be able to give it your best shot. Sagittarius, things have changed. There has been a lot of stuff in Pisces. Saturn is still in Pisces, only just. Saturn will, at the end of a week, move into Aries. But right now we've got Moon and Venus in Pisces, and we've got Mars in Leo. So we've got stuff in fire signs, and from a Sagittarian view, there is a grand trine feel to today, and the reason you feel that fiery grand trine is because you think about the other fire signs. Sagittarius is a fire sign. There's nothing in Sagittarius at the moment, no major planets or even minor planets. I'm sure there are always asteroids in Sagittarius. I'm sure you can find something, but that's not really what we're looking at. So Sagittarius is an empty sign, but Venus is making a trine to Mars, and the Moon is making a conjunction to Venus. So Moon, Venus, Mars have this trine relationship, and this trine relationship forms a grand trine with Sagittarius, which of course is your sign. So that kind of fiery grand trine with Sagittarius as a third angle is really going to motivate you, and it's going to excite you, and it really can be a fun Friday where things can happen, and you can expect things to happen, and you should put yourself in a position where you can be changed, where you can be transformed, and don't hold back. You might still think you need to hold back, especially at the beginning of the day, maybe when the Moon was quite close to the conjunction of Saturn. Probably more of an issue if you're in Australia or New Zealand, but okay, that moon conjunct Saturn, or at least the echoes of that Moon conjunct Saturn, might encourage you to just stay put, feel that you don't want to take risks, that you don't want to change, but really things have moved on. And Sagittarius, if you allow yourself to be part of this fiery grand trine energy, then whatever it is that you want, you can get it. Whatever you want to do, is there something you want to do, then just go and do it, and things will actually move faster than expected. But you need to create the momentum. If you stay still, then nothing happens, because there is no momentum. But as soon as you start moving, then you start moving faster, and you move faster, and before you know it, things really are happening. And because things are happening, and other people are energized, you're energized, and additionally, Sagittarius, your abilities are energized, and that matters. Things that you didn't think you could do, you suddenly find that you can do them, and you can actually do them very well. Now, I don't want to give the impression that today is just one big ball of constant action. There may be moments of thought where the serious side of things comes out, and that could especially be the case in relationships, because one aspect we do have today is an opposition between Mercury and true black moon Lilith. And Mercury could be representative of another person you meet for the first time, or it could be someone you spend all your time with. But Mercury opposition true black moon Lilith could say something about the way someone is thinking, the way someone is talking. And true black moon Lilith it's quite a dark energy. It's certainly a serious energy. And if you spend time listening to another person, then you might hear things which surprise you, which kind of go against the sort of the fun, fiery aspect of the day. People making quite serious comments and actually giving hints about who they are psychologically. So every now and then, Sagittarius, as you go through today, do listen to what people are saying. I mean, really listen. And don't make assumptions, and you just might hear something that really does give you pause for thought. I don't think it's a problem. I just think it's actually about awareness and being aware that some things are just a little more complicated than you'd realized. And the same may go if you're working, or if you have a job. In general, things are working out fine, but you may just come across something that is unexpected that you hadn't realized, and there is a darkness to it. And it might be the darkness of a situation, it may be the darkness of another person. And again, it's good to be aware of it, because it allows you to take a sort of a more rounded approach, and you can start to deal with other people and their psychological idiosyncrasies. Capricorn, this weekend, well, it's not the weekend, it's Friday, but it's the beginning of a weekend for many of us, and Friday and Saturday are quite similar. I mean, at least because, the moon will be in Aries on Friday and Saturday. And so Capricorn, with all this, this Aries energy, you may not want to get involved with it. I mean, there is a lot happening, at least a lot happening to other people, but it just might be something that is not of a great deal of interest to you, and you may feel that you just want to just consider what is important, what matters. And so Friday, Saturday, there may be a feeling, Capricorn, that you want to retreat, behind your own walls, and that is what you want to work on. And there is a domestic feeling to Friday and Saturday. It might be about your family, or it could just be about your home. Though, if you have anything to do with real estate, if real estate is important for you for whatever reason, then with the moon and Venus in Aries, there may be things you want to do with it, or things might crop up that require your attention. Though moon conjunct Venus, it is trine Mars. We shouldn't forget that Venus is in Aries, and Venus is in detriment in Aries. And I think there's some possibility that if you're a Capricorn and you're thinking about your home with moon conjunct Venus, you might want to do things in your home. You might feel you want to beautify your home. That's great, but how are you going to do it? And it is possible that your ideas of beauty might be somewhat ephemeral. What you find to be beautiful on Friday and Saturday might not be what you find to be beautiful in a week's time. So there is certainly a temptation to decorate or to change things' surface appearance, but I think maybe you should resist that temptation, or do things which are uncontroversial. If you have some fancy about what might look good, what might look beautiful, it might just be plain, it might be a plain fantasy, and that's not a trap that the average Capricorn wants to fall into. Though the Moon-Venus conjunction certainly has benefits. Moon-Venus conjunction is a rather sociable conjunction. It's a very people-orientated aspect, and Venus is about it's about relationships. And with Moon-Venus conjunction, I think that you can stabilize certain relationships in your life. It may be connected with your family, and there is a seriousness there. Other people might not be fully aware of that seriousness, but I think you are aware of that seriousness, and you do take relationships seriously right now. And with a serious approach, you can make progress. It's not just serious; it's also quite inspired. You just know what makes other people comfortable, just naturally. And so, Capricorn, it's a day when you should be able to put people at their ease. And another point to make is that your ability to communicate at the moment is actually very good. You're able to give a powerful account of yourself. And if you want to be Capricorn, you actually can be very persuasive. You'll come over as being a serious person who knows what they're talking about, and people will listen to you. And that's a skill that could be misused, actually. You can persuade people to do all sorts of things, and you can persuade people that things that are wrong are right, and also that things that are right are wrong. So you could go too far, but overall it's good to be able to make your opinions felt, and people will listen, and in many cases they will do what they are told. Aquarius, there is a lot of activity today, I think. And the activity is going to be perhaps of a social nature. It might be about just meeting people, talking to people. You have a lot to say, and the words will just flow. But you are going to be very aware of what you're saying and what impact your words are going to have. And I was just telling Capricorn that Capricorn can be quite persuasive at the moment, and Capricorn can get people to believe all sorts of things. And I think I'd say the same for you. In fact, I would say the same for you more so. So if Capricorn is persuasive at the moment, I think Aquarians can be even more persuasive. So you can get people to listen to you. You can get people to believe what you say. And if you want to change anyone's mind, then actually you may be able to do it. And perhaps you'll be helped by the fact that there is a trine aspect between the Sun and Pluto. So Sun-Pluto trine, that is about you having a vision about the way things should be, and you articulate that vision, and another person believes you, and you know how to explain yourself, and you know how to argue your point. So Aquarius, as far as power is concerned, I do think that you really are in a very strong position, and you can take advantage of people if you want to. I don't think that's a good idea, and you have to ask yourself, what is appropriate, and what are you actually trying to achieve. And just because you win a victory, you against someone else, but just because you win an argument, doesn't mean that's right. So some responsibility, I think, is required. But let's not take things too seriously. I think that if you just want to have a day when you are just talking, conversing, meeting new people, talking about new things, then it can be a fun day. And if you are going places, you might want to go places. I think at the moment Aquarians might. So if you want to go to different places, then go ahead. I think that a bit of variety could really help you, and could make you feel happier. And additionally, your presence is going to be welcome and perhaps even needed. Aquarians are good people to have around at the moment. They can lighten things up, and they can also provide focus, and maybe that's where your persuasiveness comes in. People might be looking for a direction, and Aquarius, you might be just the person to actually provide this direction. Pisces, there is a certain emphasis on money at the moment. Money might be something that you are thinking about, and I don't think that's a bad thing. And if you have financial aims over the course of a day, then do think about how you might actually be able to achieve them. It's not that we're talking about sudden good luck or finding large sums of money on the street. It's not really about that, but it's about thinking about money, thinking about what needs to be done, how things need to be organized, and then just going out of your way to sort it out. So hard work in the financial realm could actually be really well worth the effort, and you will notice things that maybe you hadn't noticed before, and you'll start to see how things connect together with your money, and how you're dealing with your money. However little money you've got, or however much money you've got, there's still work that can be done, and you'll have a natural feeling at the moment for the value of things. And that could mean that if you are negotiating something, even if it's something you're selling on, I don't know, Craigslist or eBay or whatever, and it might be something small, you'll know whether it's worth, is it worth $8 or is it worth $12? You'll know how much things are worth, and that can be useful. And so with money, we could get the idea of changing prices. So I think that if you're prepared to haggle and argue your case, then I think that you can get prices to be reduced. Or if you're on the other side of the argument, then you can maybe hold on for the price you want if you're selling something. So try to use that ability you have at the moment, and additionally, financial details, there won't be a problem there. Well, provided you make the effort to sort them all out. Now, one thing I should point out, Saturn is really getting very close to moving out of your sign. I mean, it's Friday. I think on Sunday, Saturn is in Aries, and so that is a big change coming up. Saturn moving out of your sign, and if you are looking at this from the viewpoint of the ascendant, I know people read these charts from in different ways. Some people look at their sun sign, some people look at their rising sign, a few people may even look at their moon sign. But if you're looking at it from a viewpoint of the rising sign, then that means that Saturn is about to leave your first house and move into the second house. Even if you're looking at it from the sun sign view, there is a feeling of moving from the first to the second house. And that's another reason why money could become quite important, maybe very important, very soon. And so with this emphasis on money that I'm talking about, it may not be what you want to hear, but it may be something about the future that very soon money is going to matter. And that's not a bad thing. Just because money matters doesn't mean there's always a money problem. It could actually be a financial opportunity. So really think about money, and think about what you can do, if appropriate, to make more money. And there seems to be the possibility that there is a dormant ability or a dormant piece of experience that is waiting to be rekindled, and it could be financially worthwhile for you to pursue. And those are my forecasts for the 12 signs. And now I want to look at today from the viewpoint of the I Ching. So I ask the question, what is Friday going to be like for those watching the I Ching section of this video? And the first hexagram I got was hexagram number 8, which is holding together. And this hexagram is very socially orientated. It's about people coming together and finding their common ground, and it might be about you becoming more sociable, and also perhaps feeling that on your own there are absolute limits to what you can achieve. At some stage you need to reach out and really see what other people can offer, and also demonstrate what you can offer. Now, this hexagram has 3 moving lines, and all of the moving lines are at the top. So the 4th line moves, the 5th line moves, the 6th line moves. So those bottom 3 lines, that bottom trigram with lines that are all broken, could represent you not really feeling you know what to do. That's the first stage, that bottom trigram, which is the receptive. You don't really know where things are going. There's just an openness to things happening, but you don't really want to take the initiative. And then we get the transition. 4th line moves, 5th line moves, and 6th line moves. So the 4th line moving is about something changing. You suddenly realizing that this is a time where you maybe feel that you actually want to take the initiative. There is suddenly greater clarity, and it's a time when you can also be more open about what you feel, and that may say something about relationships. Although I don't think that this hexagram is specifically romantic. It's just holding together, being with people, and perhaps being open about what you need in a social sense. Now, even if you don't have any connections with other people, you spend your time completely alone, even if that is the case, then you shouldn't think that it is just all about you. There is a possibility here of sending a message, asking for something, something you don't know, and you're trying to sort it out, and you didn't want to do anything, but you ask a question, and that might be all it is. Yeah, I mean, asking a question, often gives one a sense of vulnerability because one is perhaps admitting a weakness. But one has to ask questions sometimes. There's absolutely nothing wrong with asking a question, and that just might be what that fourth line actually is all about. And when dealing with other people, it's not about trying to entrap them. You are presenting yourself as you are. Not everyone is going to like you. Not everyone is going to pay any attention to you. And it's going to be very important that you don't try to hold on to people. If people want to go people want to go their separate ways, just that's fine. You always give people a chance to escape, and that might be saying something about how you should handle your social life. Don't be too possessive, and be respectful of another person's time, as you might be respectful, as you expect your time to be respected. And if someone's got something else they want to do, if someone wants to rush off, then let them do it. Don't try to manipulate people, or try to get them to do something that they don't want to do. And then the top line moves. And the problem with the top line is that in I Ching, top line is often unfortunate. And the problem here is that you might actually lose your moment. You are in a position where I think that you can benefit from outside help and support. Perhaps there's been a long time represented by those three bottom lines, where unbroken bottom lines, where you have not sought assistance, you had just gone with the flow, you haven't really discussed what's on your mind. Then you realize, hold on, getting some help, getting some advice, or just getting some companionship might be something you want, but you just could leave it too long. And the top line could be about just missing the moment. And maybe the top line is just a warning. It's not saying it will happen, it's saying that it could happen. And with these three lines, they all move. So of course that means that we move to a different hexagram. So as we've got the top three lines moving, the trigram reverses. So this top trigram will reverse. Obviously the bottom three lines will stay the same. So that means we move to hexagram number 35, which is progress. And progress does seem that you indeed are going to make progress. You'll be able to take the initiative. I think that you will be noticed, and yes, in a social sense, you will be noticed. In fact, the I Ching talks about an audience 3 times. So you have the image of someone in court or someone trying to get noticed, and they're trying to get an audience maybe with the emperor himself, and the audience is granted, and indeed 3 times. So that is good news if you're trying to meet someone. If there's someone you really want to meet, someone you think it's important to meet, or it just could be, for example, if you're applying for a job, this might indicate getting an interview or a phone call. And so there is a connection there. So if you make an effort in the previous hexagram, holding together, to get in touch with people, this hexagram progress suggests that you will succeed. But it is important to get your timing right, because remember, in the previous hexagram, holding together, the top line was moving, and that indicates that you might miss your moment. But there is a chance to get in contact with people who really can help you out, and they will listen to you, and they will give you a chance if that's what you want. So I think that overall, this I Ching reading is pretty positive, especially if your priorities are in the social realm, or perhaps if you're looking for a job, if you're looking for some kind of advancement, or you're just trying to get someone's attention. So let's now switch back to the astrology and the Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune aspect that we have today. So here is the chart for that aspect. I make it that it happens at 5:40 p.m. today, Friday, London time, and so you can see the Mars-Neptune sesquiquadrate. There is Mars at 1642 Leo, and there is Neptune at 142 Aries. So they are, in sesquiquadrate to each other. And so if you're talking about Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune, it is about Mars trying to take action, trying to take the initiative, but it's doing it in a Neptunian way. And it's a hard aspect of Neptune. So Neptune might be tripping Mars up. Mars in Leo might be very sure about, what it wants to do. Maybe looking for a bit of attention, and it thinks it's got it all sorted out. But then Neptune is a very different energy. It can trip Mars up, and it can deceive Mars. Mars might think that it's going in one direction, but that it's all clear. But in fact, it's not clear at all. So it is, that initiative, it could be like, we start off doing something, could be like a physical activity. We might feel we want to climb a mountain, sail across a river, and we think it's all calm, everything's clear, and then things change. Neptune does indeed trip us up. There might be a storm. The mountain might not be as easy as we thought it was going to be to climb. I mean, not that I know anything about climbing mountains. There might be fog. And so what we thought was just something simple could actually turn out to be really complicated, and actually could be dangerously complicated. And when I talk about Mars-Neptune aspects, I always like to use the word sleaze. There is a certain underhandedness and sleaziness about Mars-Neptune contacts, or at least they can be, because Mars can find itself interested in weird things. So Mars gets distracted, or Mars wants to put its energy into something that it shouldn't be doing. And this Mars in Leo, vulnerable to flattery. Potentially with Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune, some people might be deceived by nice words. If you tell someone they're wonderful with Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune, well, then they might believe you. Well, they may or may not be wonderful, but they may think you're someone to be trusted. So this Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune could be potentially rather treacherous, and we may see evidence of this treachery around the world. It's it could be about accidents, people making mistakes, especially in situations which are safety critical. So I wanted to look at a couple of people who have Mars sesquiquadrate or semi-square Neptune. I regard Mars semi-square Neptune and Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune as functionally the same aspect. This is an 8th harmonic conjunction. Just to remind you, so this is the Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune. If I were to multiply the positions of the planets in absolute longitude by 8, which is what you do when you calculate a harmonic. So if I create an 8th harmonic chart for this, just to show you what I mean. So if we give you the 8th harmonic, you will see that Mars and Neptune are exactly in the same place. I mean, that's what we would expect with the 8th harmonic. I mean, that's by definition what it is. So a sesquiquadrate or a semi-square between Mars and Neptune is equivalent to a conjunction on the 8th harmonic, or indeed a conjunction a conjunction on the 45-degree dial, but I'm not going to look at the 45-degree dial. So I want to now just look at a few people who have Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune in their horoscope. And one of them was the former Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, who I think was quite possibly one of the worst Secretary of States that America's ever had. Antony Blinken has really, as Biden's Secretary of State, he really saw a reduction in sort of America's influence outside the immediate sphere of the Western world, and completely mishandled the Ukraine issue and mishandled relations with China. And Antony Blinken always struck me as being someone who was rather petulant and sort of easily offended. So he was really very ineffective, well, not an effective Secretary of State. And he didn't just have Sun-Mercury conjunct. He didn't just have a Sun-Mercury conjunction in Aries. Mercury conjunct Aries is combust. So we get a feeling of deception and being misled, or being misled by his own brilliance, perhaps, or feeling of it. He was, a clever man, but perhaps too clever by half. And so that Sun in Aries was his assertiveness and self-belief, but conjunct Mercury, that prevented him from seeing things straight. And then you combine that Sun conjunct Mercury with Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune. There's his Mars. Okay, I don't have a time of birth for him, but it's likely that his Mars is pretty close to the sesquiquadrate with Neptune. So Mars is about how he asserts himself, how he applies his energy, and it's sesquiquadrate Neptune. So Neptune, it does trip him up. It perhaps encourages him to look at the wrong things and to get too emotional about things. Mars is in Pisces, Neptune is in Scorpio. So although Mars and Neptune are in trine signs, Mars and Neptune are not in trine. They're actually in a sesquiquadrate aspect. Another American politician who had or has a Mars-Neptune sesquiquadrate is Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's not a very close Mars-Neptune sesquiquadrate. I mean, I have, with these Mars sesquiquadrates, I use a 1 degree orb. I mean, if you're doing Mars, if you're looking at sesquiquadrates, semi-squares and charts, I wouldn't use more than 1 degree. Maybe 1.5 degree, but no more than that, I would have said. So she does have, though, a Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune. Mars, you could say, is what she puts her energy into. I mean, she would regard herself as being a patriotic American. Again, I don't know much about her, but she would regard herself as being a patriotic American, looking after America's interests. And sesquiquadrate Neptune, well, you could say in a positive way that is quite idealistic. I mean, Neptune does have an idealism to it, but sometimes the way she asserts herself could get herself into trouble. For example, I think she was heckling Biden, when Biden was still president. But if you know about if you know about Marjorie Taylor Greene, if you've been observing Marjorie Taylor Greene, you might just want to consider the fact she has a Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune in her horoscope. And another person who has a Mars Neptune sesquiquadrate, or was it a semi-square? I think it's a sesquiquadrate. It's so is Monica Lewinsky. So Monica Lewinsky actually has a pretty close Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune. With Monica Lewinsky, we do have a time of birth. So if you remember, Monica Lewinsky was a White House intern in the 1990s who had an encounter with Bill Clinton, an encounter which came close to costing Bill Clinton his presidency. I think that it was really tough for Monica Lewinsky. I think her trust was betrayed. I mean, she told someone about what had happened, and they told everyone. So it really maybe shouldn't have got out. Was it useful for it to get out? But anyway, she she was in her early 20s, and she had to deal with all of this. And you can see it in her chart. She has Mars in the 7th house, pretty close to the descendant, and sesquiquadrate Neptune. And that Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune, well, Mars is a sort of a male energy, and so Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune may, in this case, represent the President of the United States and her encounters with him. And also the fact that I think that to an extent she was betrayed, her trust was betrayed. And again, that's how Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune might work. But it is a bit, it is a bit sort of underhand, and something is secret and then it's not secret. So I do think that Monica Lewinsky's chart does illustrate Mars sesquiquadrate Neptune at work, and because it's a male planet, it could be projected. Yeah, in this case, maybe projected onto the president. At least that's maybe what was happening in the 1990s. And Mars, hard aspects between Mars and Neptune can be really devastating. Pol Pot, the former dictator in Cambodia, who was responsible for millions of deaths, had a Mars semi-square Neptune. We don't know how close this Mars semi-square Neptune was, because I don't have a time of birth for him. Looks to be about a degree or, but it may be more, maybe less. So Mars is what Pol Pot puts his energy into, or put his energy into. He has Mars in Cancer, wide conjunction to Pluto. So a difficult person who takes things personally. And Neptune in Leo, fantasies about himself, and also fantasies perhaps about his ideology, and just getting caught up in it. And as a result, millions of people dying. And then there is the Pope Leo the 14th. Again, another chart. We still don't have a time of birth for him, but Mars is semi-square Neptune at noon, very close to the Mars-Neptune semi-square. So it's likely that his Mars-Neptune semi-square is within approximately half a degree. And so you could say that in this case, Mars semi-square Neptune is really very simple. Mars is what he puts his energy into. He puts his energy into religion. He could have put his energy into something else. Neptune, he could have become a drug dealer. He could have become a painter, but he wanted to become the Pope. I mean, that might be how you see it, because that hard aspect with Mars and Neptune is where you want to put your energy into, and of course it's a male chart, so that just might be how it worked. And there is a sense of detail there. I mean, Mars in Virgo is a very detailed planet in a detailed sign, and semi-square Neptune. So he is attracted to religion, and so it's all how Neptune, the symbolism of Neptune works. And so Neptune has some positive symbolisms to it, and it also has some negative symbolisms. So Neptune is about drugs. I mean, he could have become maybe an oil industry executive. He could have become an executive of a pharmaceutical company. He could have become a drug dealer. That would have been all ways of using Neptune. But in his case, he went for the church. And then there is a question of, does that say anything about his papacy? And it's still there, that Mars semi-square Neptune. He is a pope, but he is a pope with Mars semi-square Neptune. And so there may still be areas which he doesn't fully understand, where he could get distracted, where he could get caught out. He may put a lot of energy into something, and it may not be the right thing to put his energy into. But, I don't know much about him. And again, we don't have a time of birth. Then just a couple of events with Mars semi-square or sesquiquadrate Neptune. And A positive event, if you're Brazilian, was the moment when Brazil won the 1970 World Cup and football World Cup. A huge event for Brazil. And I think this was when the final whistle went in Mexico City, and Mars was on the midheaven, and Mars was making a sesquiquadrate to Neptune. So Neptune can just be about dissolving into something else. And so if you're Brazilian, Mars in Cancer, the patriotism of Mars in Cancer, and dissolving into that feeling of happiness and being part of something higher. And even if Brazil had not won the World Cup, I should know who did Brazil beat? Was it Italy? But if it had been the other way, then it would of course have been the supporters of the other country that would have got involved in this celebration. But yeah, I mean, you could say that this is an example. That's an example of Mars Neptune maybe working in a fairly positive way. And certainly the 1970 World Cup is something that a lot of people remember was a very important event in the history of football. And on a more local level to me, that Mars was making a semi-square to Neptune when the state of Washington legalized the sale of marijuana, when the first marijuana shops started to open. This is midnight, December the 6th, 2012, when the law came in, and Mars was applying to a semi-square of Neptune. And so Neptune is about drugs. Mars in Capricorn, it's all about Mars in Capricorn. There's taxation revenue, and it's still quite controlled. You have the shops have to follow particular rules, but Mars semi-square Neptune, that does seem to fit the symbolism. And finally, there is the wedding of King Charles's, he was Prince Charles then, of King Charles's son and the woman who's now his daughter-in-law. So here is the chart of the wedding, which took place on May the 19th, 2018, and Mars was actually making a square to Uranus, and Mars was making a semi-square to Neptune. So a very, very close Mars semi-square Neptune. Very, very close. 1 arc minute. And I think that's close enough to say that wedding should not have happened on that day. I think that is too close. And you could say that Mars in Aquarius represents the male principle. Maybe it has a link with Charles's son, who was getting married pretty close to the South Node. And Mars semi-square Neptune, the confusion of that male principle. And then the Mars is making a square to Uranus, and Neptune is on the Mars-Uranus midpoint. And so all the subterfuge and the deception and the accusations that has come forth as a result of that marriage, and all the damage and not knowing what's going on, and people just having to choose one side or another. It's just all Mars semi-square Neptune, and it is a complete mess. And that Neptune is in the 7th house as well. So I think that is an example of a Mars semi-square Neptune not working well. And if you've got a close Mars Neptune semi-square or sesquiquadrate, then probably you should not do anything important while that aspect is exact, and probably it's a bad idea to get married. So that's it. Those all are my views on today, and also my views on the Mars Neptune contact. I hope you found this video interesting. If you did find this video interesting, I'd be very grateful if you were to like it. If you're not subscribed, I'd be super grateful if you were to subscribe. If you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description, and I will talk to you again very soon.